Welcome to the Penthouse. Today I am here with Rybot to go over my second place a deck profile, the Tempo Pile deck that I lost in the finals with. And yeah, so anyways, here with Rybot. Rybot was Rybot and Nicky Town, I believe is what he goes by in the Discord, were the kind of the architects of this deck. I picked it up a couple days before the tournament, practiced a little bit with it. But I want to pass it over to Rybots to kind of go over the theory and thought process behind the deck.
Yeah. Thanks, Perky. But yeah, this really was a labor of love, and we had quite a few different people kind of working on different ideas and really focusing around this position change and position control. Really, the inspiration was we expected a lot of champful carries to be in the meta, at least for this particular premiere. And the idea was, how do we beat Argo? What do we do to beat Argo? And the idea was, well, let's do position control. Let's work with Galaxair. Let's work with Sorlet. I want to change your guys into defense position, or I want to swap your stats. And that really was the inspiration and the idea behind the deck. So, Perky, if you want to go card by card, we can certainly jump through this.
Yeah, thanks for the breakdown. So yeah, so like Rybot was saying, the position change guys, which Sorlet isn't directly a position change guy, but I mean, you're swapping the attack and defense, so it's essentially the same thing. These are like probably some of the best Celestrals in the game right now. I mean, especially in Argo format, like Rybot was saying, the fact that you can change something to defense, not have to worry about the Argo into a necklace or, into a scythe or whatever it is. These cards all prevent that from happening, on top of the Hurricane, which we'll get to later. So all these guys felt insane. Like, obviously Eddie's a 3 of in basically every deck nowadays. The Galaxair, honestly, like at first, like when I was going through the tournament, I didn't think it was as crazy as it seemed. But once I went back and like watched some of my games, I realized that thing's kind of the MVP. I think in both clashes in my top 4 match against Bo, I started out with the Galaxair in both of them, and it kind of just put in work the entire clash. So Galaxair honestly kind of carried me through the whole tournament. Sorlet is, I will say, like in terms of like the rankings of these guys, I'll say like the Galaxair is probably the best, then the Eddie, then the Sorlet. Sorlet is obviously a 5, which is the number you want to be at in the current meta. I'm not a huge fan of the expend a wind in order to change. Obviously, if it gets gazed, you're just out the spirits, which isn't a huge deal, but I realized like 9 times out of 10 I was water enchanting this guy, and he was just a big guy. Any more thoughts on these guys, Rybot?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. In my experience, obviously I was running a very similar deck that you were, and I think Galaxair was super amazing, overperformed for me specifically, especially in some of the earlier matches that I did during the tournament. A lot of people don't really understand how the stat swaps work, and that can certainly work in your favor when you're the one doing the stat swap. So you can, throw out a Galaxair in attack position, do a stat swap on your opponent's Celestial, and they think that they can just play Argo and throw out a necklace, and it's like, well, great, now your opponent has a 10 defense, fantastic, but you're going to run them over. So Galaxair for me overperformed, and it sounds like it's performed for you pretty well as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that I didn't actually have that Argo play come up, but I could see where, like, someone who doesn't know the rulings as well, like that would be absolutely insane. Just burn 4 spirits to die anyways.
For sure.
Insane.
Exactly.
So that's the most important. That's kind of the theory behind the deck, was, the stat swap, position swap kind of thing. And now we kind of get into like the general stuff. So 2 Galaxy. This card, honestly, probably the worst card in the deck for me specifically. Like, I didn't really have too many water matchups where like it came up and actually mattered. And for some reason, every time I play Galaxy, it is a magnet to Gorgon's Gaze in the battle step. So this card was like kind of, I think, like, Rybot, would you say it was like kind of the last slot we just needed to fill kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, this slot we had a couple of different cards. We were looking at Nekruff. We were looking at
The Limaru.
Lumaru
Yeah.
just to be like a water enchanted 5, and then ultimately it was kind of like, well, let's just throw Galaxy there. We were already going to be water enchanting Lumaru. Um, for me, I think a lot of the theory was, we looked at the last premiere and you saw Big Guy Frost doing a lot of things. You saw a lot of misenchanted Cryovern with water.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of throwing out a Galaxy puts pressure on your opponent to properly enchant whatever they're doing, or at least not water enchant them. So if you have a Tsunami in the back row, and you throw out a Galaxy, your opponent really needs to respect one or the other, right? So they can't misenchant their guys to try and get over the Tsunami or play around Tsunami, because if they misenchant with water, they're going to be working with their defense stat, which normally is not very good. So even though it certainly wasn't the MVP of the deck, I think it added some utility that we were kind of looking for. And ultimately, yeah, we only ran two, and it kind of was filling some spots. But I think the theory was there why we ran it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of like mind games you can kind of play with the Galaxy, like you mentioned with the Tsunami, and then obviously you're on all of the the stat change and position change things. So like there's a lot of like mind games you can do with this card, which probably something I need to actually get better with. If those kind of things were crossing my mind while I was playing, then I probably would have gotten a lot more use out of this guy.
Sure.
But this was this card, and I went in a weird order with this, but like this was always the first card I was citing out for stuff we'll get into later. But next after that, we've got obviously the 3 Ash Rabbits, the poster child of Alestrals currently. I mean, there's not really much to say about Rabbit. It's Rabbit. Everyone knows what it is. Most people hate it. Most people love it when they have it, hate it when the opponent has it. So, yeah, get you into, everything else in your deck. It's Rabbit. Other than that, Chick, same thing here. You'll see here in a little bit, we have the Chick Zeus, and kind of same thing for Moonrise format. Like if you're not on a game plan deck, then 3 Rabbit, 1 Chick, and the Zeus are kind of the mandatory ones. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, no, I mean, super standard.
Yeah.
3 Rabbit, 1 Chick. We're on a Zeus package. Obviously with the ban list that just came out, things are going to change, but this is pretty standard for the time frame in which we played the deck. So,
and then lastly, we had the one of Quackle here. I don't actually know. Was there a reason we decided just to go? Was it just like for space purposes? Was we just decided to keep the 1 Quackle in?
I mean, we were kind of looking at like who's going to be that last guy, and then Quackle just kind of made sense. We had a pretty big Thunder package. So going Quackle, which is just, going to recur spirits, it just kind of worked. And then, once we get into the side deck, you'll see, we have triple Quackle, which will really play into like that third game if it goes to 3. But really, it was just kind of like a little bit of recursion, a little bit of heal. This certainly isn't a heal stall deck, but being able to like throw out a Quackle when you need it to kind of bounce some spirits back really was helpful. So
yeah, for sure. And even though it was a one of, like, I feel like this honestly came up like we're about to get into the Arcolith. I feel like this Quackle actually put in more work for me than the Arcolith. Even though it was a one of, like, there's plenty of game states where it would be super late game, and I might be equal or behind on spirits, and just the cast of a Quackle with the backup back row in order to protect it, and get it to stick another turn just to like ascend into an Arcolith. Like I think I did that a few times, and I don't know, it felt like Quackle really overperformed for me. Let's see.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, yeah, obviously the 2 lists here. Lavalith, like, the more I play with Lavalith, like, because I started in, like, mid to late Daybreak format and didn't really use Lavalith then. But the more I play with it now, like, the card is just insane. There's not much else to say about it. And the same thing about Arcolith. It's, the late game, healer, or if you're in time, the healer. does a lot of damage. Kind of the best comeback card in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, this through and through really is it's a fives deck, right? We're playing fives, which is not super exciting or super fun or super innovative, but being able to throw those two lifts into it makes it, like, kind of increases the ceiling of the deck, right? Like, a lot of fives will struggle with, like, big guys or tower strategies, but being able to throw in that Arclith jump scare or that Lavalith jump scare just gives a lot of utility to the deck, and it was just super beneficial, right? Like, you're running fives, but the fact that you can, like, throw down a Arclith when your opponent's not necessarily ready for it just pays off in dividends.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, so that was the Alestra lineup. I think there was 16 1-drops, and then the Lavalith and Arcalith make 18. So now we get into the runes, and I know a lot of people are down on Hurricane lately, but this was like the MVP of the deck for me, other than Galaxir. There was so many games where, people were just not respecting the Hurricane. They would play into it, and I would get the crazy value. There actually was multiple games I would resolve, 2 Hurricanes in a clash. And that would be the reason that I ended up winning the game in the end. It just overperformed. I know a lot of people don't want to run 3 because, you frequently will see 2 when you run the 3. However, I think there was more times where I wanted to see the 2 versus times I didn't want to see the 2. If that makes sense. I don't know. I might have described that in a weird way. But anyways, aside from all that, Hurricane is just an insane card.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And in my experience running the deck as well, like, I think the 3 Hurricane was really cool. I like to see it, obviously, and certainly it can be sided out in game 2 or 3, depending on what the game state is or what your matchup is. But having you Hurricane was just so awesome for me. And
yeah, for sure.
It sounds like it worked out a lot for you as well.
Yeah.
People just weren't ready for it. And especially in an Argo format, being able to just delete your opponent's back row, make your push, or get tempo is just so valuable right now.
For sure. Yeah, the Argo counter here is insane too. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Other than that, we've got a pretty standard lineup of removals here. We've got the 2 Cryoblasts, the Laurels here. We opted not to go with the Earthquake in the deck at all. And the big reason for that was, just the room for spirits, essentially.
Spirit Math, yeah. Spirit Math is a little tough. We decided to go more towards the fire stuff, and you'll see as Perky continues with the deck profile and the side deck, but we decided to kind of bounce Earthquake.
Yeah, for sure. Next, 3 Ambro, pretty standard here. Healing is good. Ambro is kind of a 3 of in basically every deck. And then the 2 Zeus, which obviously you saw the chick earlier. 2 Zeus kind of mandatory in any 5 style list. Not too much to say about it. Same thing with the counter rune lineup. We've got the 3 Gaze, the 3 Shield, the 3 PTA, the 2 Tsunami. Numbers felt good here. Not too much to say. This is kind of the standard thing for 5s in general. Anything to add to that, Rybot?
Yeah, no, pretty standard stuff.
Yeah. Yep, so that was the main deck. Side deck, where stuff gets kind of fun. We opted to throw in three Boombat. I'm going to try to hide the ugly Boombat with the pretty ones right here. Yeah, Boombats. I don't think there might have been like one game where I played a Boombat. I don't think I resolved the effect. I did bring all 3 of these in my finals match against Cobalt and just did in game 2 and just didn't see it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But Boombat was our out to the towers kind of things, your Voltempish, your Chronodials, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it did what it was supposed to, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, Boombat's there for Blistrix and anything where, like, obviously we're running a 5s deck, so we can't really get over super huge guys. And in the event that you go up against something like a Towers deck, you need to have that Boombat. It was unfortunate in your finals match, but I mean, it was there. It was there. You just didn't see it, unfortunately.
Yep. You gotta live and die by the sighting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
2 Quackles. Those were, we kind of mentioned Quackle earlier, the other 2 being in the side. This was the card I brought in over the Galaxy in not every single clash, but I would say probably like, let's see, I played 10 rounds. I'd say in probably 8 of those 10 rounds, I brought the Quackles in game 2, just because, like I said, Galaxy just always gets gazed in the worst moments for me. And that felt great. There was one game in time I resolved 3 Quackles and 2 Ambrosias in order to heal the full, and got full value, the full 15 spirits
That's
back.
crazy.
And we played,
crazy,
like,
bro.
we'll get into the math in a minute, but I think we played 6 Zaptors. So like in order to do that, like, I don't know, I just, not to like brag about myself, but playing correctly in order to get the max value off the card, it's just insane.
Yeah.
Other than that though, Eruption is my favorite card in this deck. A lot of people hate on Eruption right now.
As they should.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a weird spot with it, because it's like it does the same thing as Ambrosia effectively and it costs 1 more spirit. But like when you're, thinking of your strategy late game and you might have 5 spirits left and you're like, okay, I've got back row to save my ass if whatever happens, and then an Eruption comes down. Now all of a sudden you're down to 2 and you can't really activate your back row. Like, this card just swings games in an insane way. There was multiple games I would bring it in, game 2 and game 3, and it would just, I would be able to Eruption for the win at the end of the game. I think there was a Blizz matchup that I actually should have probably lost against Astro Knight, that I was able to top deck the Eruption and win game 3. So luck was a little on my side there for sure. But yeah, this card not getting hit at all on the list is kind of scary. Like, I really think
it's crazy.
Yeah, I really think it should probably be at 1 or 2.
Yeah. So I mean, the idea behind Eruption specifically was like, hey, we're playing Lavalith. We've got 2 fire in the main deck. So if we're already playing fire, let's play Eruption.
Mm-hmm.
And also kind of catch your opponent off guard or catch them by surprise. Specifically because they're like, maybe they see the fire spirits in game 1 and maybe they don't. If we don't see the Lavalith, maybe they won't see that, and then they won't expect the Eruption. So it is kind of catching your opponent off guard, but at the same time, it's a safeguard against decks like Blistrix. It's a safeguard against decks that are doing kind of reanimator stuff, or any deck that's doing something super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can easily side into it game 2 or game 3. Also, if you're ever going into a game 3 where you think the game's going to go to time, siding into your Quackles, siding into your Eruptions, and you haven't hit it yet, but also siding into your Spoiled Fruits. You have a lot of tools there to just make sure that you can win that game 3 that's going to go to time.
Yeah, for sure. Another note to add on Eruption is it has its like, it's not really a skillful card, but knowing when to play Eruption is key, and that's one of the things that makes the card so impactful, like in late game scenarios. But yeah, anyways, the card, it was great for me. I really feel like it should be ran in more decks, since it's legal, until it gets hit in some capacity.
Card is broken.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said card is broken.
Yeah, it's just insane. We had the 3rd Cryoblast, the 3rd Tsunami in here. There were some games where the 3rd Hurricane didn't feel too great, and you would side it out, bring in the Cryoblast. Same thing with Tsunami. If the shield or the PTA didn't feel good, you'd bring in the Tsunami. Kind of matchup dependent, but yeah, obviously the 3rds were going to be in here. 3 Spoiled Fruit. Not a lot of people think 3 is necessary. Julian actually has made me the biggest hater of heal decks in general. I lost to him in a premiere before, one of the ones before Dallas, and since then I will never not side deck 3 Spoiled Fruit. It did what it needed to do. I think in my top 4 match against Bo, I was able to resolve one of these and kill his Voldusk, which kind of came up clutch.
Super hype. That was a super hype moment, I will say.
Yeah, I think we talked to Bo afterwards, and he said that there wasn't a single person who spoiled fruited his Voldusk until that moment.
Except for you, yep.
Felt good.
Super hype.
Yeah, for sure. So Spoiled Fruit, great card. It's in basically everyone's side deck, so not much else to say about it. And lastly, 2 more Vipyros. We ran 2 in the main deck, and we wanted to obviously bring in the 2 for the eruptions in case, you know, you could resolve multiple eruptions or even a lava lith. Lastly, spirits. We ran the 1 Fleur Mine. I'm doing this kind of backwards. 1 Fleur Mine, 2 Vipyro. We had 5 Leviathan, and then 6 Saptor, 6 Lycoris. These felt fine. It wasn't like, you know, too thought intensive, I guess is the best way to say it for me. Anytime I brought in the Vipyros, I was bringing in those for the Lycoris and a Zaptor or double Lycoris. It kind of just depended on what I took out, but like the spirit math all around was comfy in my opinion.
Yeah. Spirit math seemed pretty comfy. And then obviously having enough wind to be able to resolve a Sorlet if you needed to. The spirit math was pretty nice for this deck, and like you said, it was pretty comfy. It was comfy for me as well when I was playing it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the hardest thing to pay attention to, and it really wasn't even that bad, is if you actually need to resolve your Sorlet effect, make sure you're not expending your Lycoris. I think that was my biggest thing, was like Lycoris was the first one I went to when I had to expend, and I don't think there was any games where I wish I just had the last spirit to expend for a Sorlet effect. Like I'm pretty sure I managed it well enough, but yeah, super comfy with these ratios here. So yeah, this was my first top. Felt great after everyone in the penthouse topping in Dallas. I felt like I was the last one that needed to prove myself, and I feel like I did that with this deck. So
oh, you definitely did, bro. You absolutely did.
Yeah, big shout out to, like I said, Rybot obviously is here, and Nick for coming up with the deck. Yeah, I'm super happy with the results. Big congrats to Cobalt. He deserved it. I know a lot of people were giving him some hate, which I don't think was warranted. So yeah, let's keep it friendly, guys. That's kind of all I'll say on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so this has been the deck profile. Pick up the Wind Tempo deck. It is a blast to play. Yeah, anything else to add, Rybot?
No, I mean that's it. I'm glad that you were able to take it all the way to second. There was a lot of practice and love put behind the deck, and a lot of people had their hands into it, and we kind of made something that worked, and we kind of made a meta call based off of, you know, Argo format, and bro, you were able to pilot it to the end, so that was great.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on the deck. If you want to pick up the deck, whatever it is. Yeah, any, what's the word? There's a word. I'm blanking so hard right now.
Bird's the word.
All right, well, this has went on for long enough. I think we're about 23 minutes on this deck profile. Rybot and I like to ramble as it is, so we'll go ahead and just cut it here. But yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.